Hi everyone, it's Elaine Hamilton from the Reiki Center, and today I'm here with Elaine Yang, who has been a Reiki teacher for almost 15 years, and we've got some really interesting topics to talk about. So let's get cracking. Hi Elaine.
Hi.
So let's start off with a little bit of background on you in terms of what's your Reiki journey been like? What are you doing at the moment? All that kind of stuff, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty.
It's been unexpected, I guess. That would be a good way to talk about it. So where I am right now was definitely not where I thought I would be when I first started out. Right now, I am teaching. I am seeing clients for Reiki. At the same time, I'm also doing a couple of other modalities. I do sound healing. I channel crystal bracelets. I do a bit of systemic constellation work with my clients. Yeah, so these are some of the things that I'm doing as well on top of Reiki. And interestingly, I would say that Reiki actually also led me there, which may be something interesting to kind of talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember way back at Reiki 1, and you came in and you were working in recruitment then, weren't you? Remind
Yeah,
me.
I was in HR.
Yeah.
Yes, I was in HR.
Yeah. So you were in HR and you were coming to Reiki not to become a Reiki teacher at all, right? So talk a little bit about
No.
that. Like what attracted you to Reiki in the first place?
So I was actually at a point of my life where I had learned to function, if that makes sense. I was functioning at work, I was functioning daily. And the truth was I was actually really struggling with a lot of things. So I was in quite a bit of pain, physical pain, because of slip disc. I was pretty stressed out at work, and I was going through quite a number of changes in life as well. So it was a time where I remember reflecting a lot about what I had been doing for the past half a decade or more. Whenever I was feeling off or whenever I was feeling in pain, what I used to do was I simply went and see a doctor, I popped a few pills. I was actually diagnosed with clinical depression when I was really young, early 20s. So I was also on antidepressants for a number of years. By then, I had weaned off those already. But what I meant to say is that, I had years where I only knew how to seek help externally.
Hmm.
And it had gotten to a point where I didn't like how it left me feeling, which was very disempowered and very helpless. And I remember sitting at work one day and just thinking, is this how it's going to be like for the rest of my life, where I'm not feeling so great and I can only go to somebody else to help me out, and I have nothing that I can do for myself.
Hmm.
So it really started that way. I had no exposure to anything that was holistic, anything that was energy based. None of that. I didn't do yoga. I tried to meditate and I fell asleep all the time. I had a whole different idea about what meditation was, what meditation is, I mean. So um, I just Googled healing, and what popped up was a Reiki talk and by you back then. And I remember reading about it, being very pragmatic, being very logical, none of it made any sense. And I just thought, you know what, if this could just take all my problems away, which I learned much later that it's not a magic wand. I wanted it to be a magic wand.
Don't we
But
all?
you could take everything away. Don't we all, right?
Yeah.
And and I was like, okay, if you could take everything away, with everything away, I'm gonna try it. And since it was a talk, I figured the worst thing that could happen is I waste 3 hours of my time. And then I realized that this is not the magical journey, the magic that it's a magical journey for sure, but not the magic that I was looking for. Then, that's the worst that could happen. So that was how it started. Talk started with being desperate to find something to help myself and
Hmm.
not knowing where any of this is going to lead.
So
Yeah.
what did you notice? Like, because you did, if I remember correctly, you did the Reiki. learning pretty compactly. You did Reiki 1 and then you went on to Reiki 2 after a couple of months, and then like it was pretty quick, wasn't it? Is that right? Is my memory right?
It wasn't that quick actually, but back then I was the quickest. So I
That's
think
what I thought.
after that, we had people just, really moving through this a lot quicker.
Yeah.
I think my entire journey uh took about a year and a half
Mm.
before from level one to teachers training, a year and a half, almost 2 years actually. So I remember completing RMT 20. Oh no, actually, no, you're right. Yeah. Completing RMT 2011, towards the end of 2011, I
Mm.
believe. So yeah, almost 2 years because it started
Yeah.
early 2010.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And you can go quicker now. Like you could do the whole thing in, I don't know, 14, 15
9 months.
months, right? But
Yeah.
back then it was like a year training and a this and a that. So yeah, no, good. Because I do remember saying to you, wow, you're really quick going through this. But then for me, it was really interesting how right from it, I don't know. I don't know if you remember this, but I remember thinking very early on, and maybe it was just energetic, intuitive, I don't know what, but I was like, yeah, you're going to be a really amazing teacher. And when I told you that, you were like, what? No, that's never going to happen.
Where I was like, oh, never, never, ever.
So let's talk about that, because once you kind of completed your training, and one of the things we were talking about before we clicked record was this kind of feeling of reluctance, or trying to slow things down, or trying to maybe control outcomes. So talk a little bit
Yeah.
about where you were in your mind compared to what was actually showing up for you.
So what was in my mind when I started was very simple. Like I said, I was looking for a magic wand. I just wanted my pain to go away. I wanted to feel happy all the time, which, it was a very, very huge learning for me, and where that the path that kind of went on. But even as I was going deeper with my practice, I still thought that the only thing that I'll be doing with this was to help myself. And then as I started to move on, oh, maybe I could just help a few people with Reiki sessions, and that will be it. And then I remember doing Reiki training, master training, um, saying to you, I have no idea why I'm here. But it just felt right to do RMT. So here I am, but I would never teach. Um, and then um, I taught my first Reiki level one. This I remember was a client. Funny story. I still remember it was a one-on-one, and he lived in Jovois Lane, and then autocorrect corrected it to nervous, and that was literally how I felt. I remember thinking, do this. I don't think this is right, and I don't think I'm good enough, and I don't think I have enough experience. And there was all the blah 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 blah. Even though the truth was, I was already doing this for a while, like doing Reiki professionally, I guess. And really, the simple truth was, I know more than this person. So how can you not know enough? If that
Yeah.
makes sense, right? So I did that level one student, and then the next level one came, and I remember saying to you, that's all I'm gonna teach, level one. I'm not gonna teach level two ever. And you just look at me and you laughed. And
I do laugh. We do laugh quite a lot with each other, don't we?
we
I'm just
laughed
kind
a
of like,
lot.
yeah, all right, whatever.
Yeah, we laughed a lot. And then yeah, then level two came, and I was like, yep, it's gonna stop here, never gonna teach level three, and here we are. So right now I'm already doing all the levels, including RMT. Definitely not something that I thought I would do. I have left my the corporate world in 2012, I think,
Mm.
if I remember correctly. Was again not in the plan. I never went back. Was also not in the plan. I literally thought I was going to take a 6 month sabbatical from the corporate world just to rest. Yeah, and then I ended up doing more than Reiki, also not in the plan. Basically, everything that I'm doing right now was not in the plan.
No.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that mechanic, because I honestly think it happens to so many of us, right? It's just kind of like you have, and to be honest, the personal growth world is full of that languaging, right? Like, know your goals, know your purpose, have a goal and manifest it. And it's this whole idea
Right.
that we are the ones that should be directing our lives into very specific goals or visions or this or that. And you think about all the visioning boards and the secret and the law of attraction and all this kind of stuff that we are basically fed as the way we are supposed to get our best life, right? Like fulfill your potential, as if we know what that potential is. Now, in your case, I think if you had fulfilled what you thought was your potential, you would still just be doing healing. Like you wouldn't be teaching. And yet to me, when I looked at you, I was like, well, here's a great teacher. And so I'm curious around how, like, even though I was saying that to you, you were like, no, 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 that's not in my plan. But the universe, because no one forced you to do this, right? It's like the universe put people in front of you, or that might sound a bit clunky, but you know what I mean? It was like opportunities arose that was not in your plan. So how did you, or what was it like for you to kind of just open, I guess? Like what was the mechanic behind that?
I think the first experience of opening up didn't feel like an opening up, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
It just felt like I'll, I'm afraid, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Hmm.
And I didn't think this was gonna be what I wanted to do, but let's try it anyway. And then over time, it just began to feel like this flowing that happened. So let's see what's coming in my direction. Does it feel aligned? Does it feel right? Even though my head is screaming no.
Hmm.
And just like with anything, right? The more you practice that something that you practice more and more, it gets easier. So that opening up was practiced at the beginning,
Yeah.
right? And then at some point, you literally look back and went, oh, wow, I just opened into so many possibilities without realizing that was what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah,
So that you said something that I think a lot of people struggle with in terms of your mind is screaming, no, no, no,
yeah,
but you're feeling for alignment. So how does that feel like for you?
natural. That's just the word. Like the feeling of alignment is just, does this feel very natural to me? Does it feel like it gives me a sense of, there's not one word that could describe this: joy, excitement, um, a knowing that this is this feels good. I don't really have one word to explain it
Mhm.
all, but it was, I think, like I said, the closest word would be, does it feel natural? And if it does feel natural, the only part that is holding you back is your head screaming, no, because blah, blah, blah. No, because, so I always say that your head can only know what it already does.
Nice.
And that means it's limited. You can't see beyond what it already knows or what it thinks it knows. But when you don't go with just the head, and you feel into your whole being, like the body knows different,
Mm.
the heart beats different. And it's really something that, like I said, the more you practice this, the easier it gets. And then you realize that none of this was about doing. Everything was just about being in that that knowing, that sense of this is natural for me, and that sense of I don't have to know how this look like. Um, it's a whole other sense.
Mm.
And I really had to practice that because I am by nature, and I still say this to my students and my clients, by nature, I'm a very pragmatic person. I'm very logical. So instinctually, my head comes in, right? And over time, I just start to recognize what that feels like. This is the head. This is what it feels like. It feels a little tighter.
Yeah.
And this is not the head. This feels a lot more expanded.
Mm.
This feels more natural. This doesn't feel like I'm fighting against something. And the more you tune into that, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to letting go of plans, because plans are rigid. Life is not rigid. Life shows you everything that can be possible. And life brings you things that your mind doesn't understand. Your plans comes from here,
Right. So it comes
right?
from the
So
the limited past and a very
yes,
kind of like,
yes,
yeah, linear, like it's almost like a linear projection of where you've
yes,
been, but
yes.
life
Everything that
actually
the
is not.
mind only knows.
Yeah.
Yes. It only comes from what the mind already knows or think it knows. So how can it shows you all that is possible?
Mm.
Yeah. So it really just started going in that direction very organically. Um, so 15 years later, I'm doing things that I didn't think I could ever do.
Yeah. Amazing. But I also want to bring in the timeline because even though you were very quick through the stages, this allowing or this practice into the natural alignment or the natural opening to, well, what's actually, it's almost like that shift, isn't it, from I know where I'm going and I know what I'm doing and I need to control things, into that more curious openness of, well, what is out there, like what is coming next for me, rather than me chasing it. Now that
Mm.
actually takes many years to practice and develop, and doesn't it? And I think that a lot of people think, well, once I finish my Reiki master, because I know a lot of people go through this, including myself. It was just kind of like, well, now I should know, and now I should open, and now I blah blah blah. But there is there's an unfolding process that happens, which can take many years.
Mm.
So, as well as doing all your Reiki healing and your Reiki teaching, you've also started to move, well, not started actually, you've been doing this for years as well, in terms of the bowls, the crystal bowls, and also the crystal bracelets. So, talk about your kind of love for crystals in terms of and how that developed, because I don't remember you having such a strong connection, or maybe you did, but it was hidden.
I actually didn't. So I came into Reiki thinking crystals are colored stones.
Mm.
So it's exactly like what we are talking about. Like the more you practice. And when I say practice, it's really like practicing allowing, and it just keep allowing, right? You tune into the knowing beyond what the logical mind knows. The more you start to open up to so many things. Like for me, I always feel like Reiki is such a great foundation that continues to hold you as an individual, as you develop as a teacher. And years into my practice, I started to realized I was getting very connected to crystals.
Mm.
And while had it been a few years ago, my mind would have come in saying, yeah, but it's just stones. Yeah, so it had been like years ago, I would have probably just gone into my head thinking like this is just stones, and I would have really tuned out the part where my body was responding. When I picked up a crystal, when I started wearing a bracelet, and it really started with me wearing a few crystal bracelets. That was actually channeled by someone I knew back then, and I really found them very supportive. Um, and it developed into me getting so sensitive to crystals even before they come together as a bracelet, how it would feel collectively. I remember the first bracelet that I created was for my childhood friend, simply because I could see the beads coming together and I could feel in my body, because it's very somatic for me. It's very visceral, how it would feel like, and I could literally just feel her with it, and what that combined energy, so to speak, would be like. And it just felt right. I don't really have any other words to explain it, except it felt right. So I made that bracelet for my best friend. Funny thing was that bracelet, the theme of that bracelet was black and white because of the color of the stones. And it was actually a Christmas party that I was going to, and presented it to her. She stared at the bracelet and she literally said, "That's so weird." And she told me to look around her decorations. Her decorations were in black and white, and she had changed that morning.
Mm.
And yes, she said, "I just felt I needed to change everything into black and white. I didn't know why." And for me, I feel like that was just the universe way of telling me, hey, pay attention,
Mm.
right? And then I had a few people who were really drawn to that bracelet as well. And I started, you know, doing it for a few more people. And then that literally expanded into feeling more and more crystals coming in when I am feeling somebody's energy. And now it's been 6, 7 years,
Mm.
and I still can't explain how else this happened other than me allowing it to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only, I think there is also this thing of it comes in and you allow it, and then there
I
is
acted.
that part of us that then needs to step into it. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And to
Yes.
actually, like you do, actually start saying, okay, this is what I do. Right. This is one of the things that I do, or this is one of the things I can offer. And that
Yes.
is another, almost like a leap of faith in a way, isn't it? At being willing to put yourself out there, and maybe have people turn around and say, well, I don't like it, or it doesn't work for me, or whatever. And I think that is also kind of like an act of courage. I don't know. How would you describe that?
I question it every part of the way, you know.
Yeah. That's kind of why I'm asking, because at
Yeah.
some point there's this questioning that happens, and it's back and forth, back, like there's so much self-doubt,
For
and
me,
then
yes. But for me, it was really like I question it, but I recognize that that is just my mind doing what it's used to.
mm,
So I don't stop it because I know where it's coming from. I don't stop it. I don't get upset about it. To know that there is a part of me that has been so used to doing things a certain way, which is I doubt everything, that is still there. But I didn't allow it to be in the foreground.
yeah,
It was in the background. I questioned it, but I did it anyway
yeah,
because it was part of the me learning to trust what I'm feeling, what was very natural for me, while allowing a space of, yeah, like creating a space or place for the mind, but just not letting it to be center stage. I didn't reject it.
Yeah. It's there's that way before your time, but there's probably one of the first classical self-help books that was written by a lady called Susan Jeffries, I think, called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And it
Yeah.
came out, I don't know, it came out like 50 years ago. And it blew a lot of people's minds because it was exactly this topic of like we all have fear and doubt to different degrees, right? Like some people just seem to have a certain confidence that they just ignore it. But for most of
Yeah.
us, we have this constant doubting or this feeling of
The
no.
mechanism.
Yeah, it's that mechanism of, wow, you don't want to put yourself out there. You don't want to make a fool of yourself. You don't want to like, I remember for me, a message I heard a lot growing up was don't get too big for your boots. So it's this expression of, don't get overconfident, don't get cocky, don't get arrogant, and I know you and I talk about this a lot, this almost fear of falling into that spiritual arrogance that happens a lot and is such a horrible kind of energy when it does happen. That spiritual ego. And and so there's that constant doubt of, don't go into that. But as you say, then it also means that you close yourself down to exploring things that actually are just your natural process or progression or growth into, like for you, realizing really that, oh my God, I have a really deep resonance and connection with crystals. They really talk to me and I can feel the energy. And like you say, I can feel how the energy of the crystal will influence and interact with somebody else's energy, which is kind of, I've never heard you describe it like that. It's kind of amazing to me. Like I wouldn't even know how to do that. Like that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is something like that's like me realizing that I could feel things that I didn't naturally understand if I were to use my head,
Mm,
and learning to trust that, learning that yes, I may still have fear, but knowing where that's coming from really, really old programming that, had really been there for decades. So there is the part of it that's still there. I recognize where it's coming from. I allow a place for it, but I didn't let that be the guiding force.
yeah.
I just recognized it for what it is. And I did it anyway because there is a much bigger part that resonated,
Mm,
that knew this was right.
yeah.
So then I just did one bracelet, I did another, and I did another, and then now it becomes a service that I offer.
Mm,
Um, yeah, again, was not something that was planned or I could have even ever envisioned myself doing,
yeah.
considering the fact that once upon a time, I thought crystals were colored stones.
Yeah, I still do. And yet when I put on one of your bracelets, I'm like, oh, my body feels funny. So
Funny.
I trust you implicitly. It's one of those things. It's like, okay, you can see what's going on, even if I can't see what's going on. And I think that's really amazing. So let's talk a little bit about, so you now have this space where I'm not really sure if that makes sense, but I'm curious around how you now navigate. So you've kind of let go of that idea of I know I can plan into next year, I can plan into 2 years, or I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, and I shouldn't be doing this or that. So how does that look for you now? Like how do you, so the a more of a question for most people, they are not comfortable with the not knowing, like the not knowing what's next or the not knowing. how it's going to unfold. So how do you navigate that?
I think what I can say is now I respond to what life is bringing me in every moment,
Mm,
which is very different from planning. So life brings you something, you respond based on what's happening at the time. And then that continues because that continues to work with what life is bring you. And sometimes, that general thing that's going on carries on for a few months or even a few years. And then so how you responded to it continue to work until maybe life then throws you something else, right? So I now simply stay open to what may happen because I have learned to lean into the I don't know.
mm,
So if I can fully embrace the I don't know, number one, it brings so much relief
yeah.
because that's the truth, isn't it? Who knows? Nobody knows. I don't know. You don't know. So being able to really embrace that just brings so much lightness.
Mm,
So
yeah.
that's one. And two, you just really let life lead you. And I don't mean this in a disempowering way, like, oh, I don't do anything and just watch what happens, but really being fully present in every moment so you know how to respond opens up possibilities for you that you had not even imagined.
Mm,
So the past 15 years has really been like that, whether it's with my Reiki or my sound healing or my bracelets. Because I allow myself to not know, I allow myself to try.
mm,
Because I allow myself to not know, I didn't set tight goals or tight deadlines or rigid ways of doing things. Because if I don't know, I can only explore. And I think that's not the usual way
yeah.
we were taught to operate. That was definitely not the way that I was taught to operate. But what I can say is it brings me so much more peace, one. It brings me so much more joy when I explore something and it goes like, wow, this was not what I expected. And this was really amazing. And this can be done like this. And it gives me so much more almost fulfillment because I didn't set rigid goals.
Mm,
So there can be so many ways I could experience this. There could be so many ways I could feel, I could bring success to whatever that I'm doing, whether it's a bracelet or the sound or the Reiki. There can be so many ways I am fulfilled.
mm,
If you only have one set way of looking at things, then that's literally the only way that you could be happy, or that's the only way that you could be successful, or that's the only way that you could do things right. How limiting that is.
yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And you miss all the other bits. It's like if you set, okay, in order for a Reiki 1 class to be successful, it needs 6 people in it. And then you get 5, which is amazing, but you don't see that as amazing because you didn't get 6.
Yeah, and then that really puts you in a not a very nice mind space,
Oh,
right? And that actually sets you back from being able to show up fully
yeah.
as a teacher for your class as well. And if you expand that beyond Reiki teaching, it's exactly the same because you have set such rigid ways of success in your mind or joy in your mind. when life shows you something, you cannot fully enjoy it.
Mm.
You cannot fully show up for it. And how much that could take away from your life, I mean, that could really take so much away from you.
Yeah.
And this is what I've learned, I think, because I don't know, because I allowed, because it could look like anything. I live my life a lot more fuller
Mm.
than I thought I could.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And this has got nothing to do with anything that's quantifiable.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
It just really is how I feel in my entire body, I never thought that I could experience joy a certain way, or experience success a certain way, or experience fulfillment a certain way. And now every time I feel something I didn't expect, that itself is a joy.
Mm.
I don't know if I make sense,
Yeah.
because I now have allowed a different experience. I've now allowed myself to enjoy my life in yet another way.
Yeah. At
Yeah.
whatever pace.
Whatever pace, whatever way, however it looks, it's just very liberating.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's such a it's such a simple hack, right? It's just
Yeah.
stop. It's like just stop overlaying the mind's, okay, this is the plan, this is the plan, this is the plan, just this is the plan, this is the plan. And it's like when you stop doing that, and I'm not saying it's easy to do that, because you and I both know it's not. It's, it takes a while to unwind or take out that filter, because all our life we've been told we need a plan. And I'm equally guilty of this. Like, I put my hand up. That ideal scene that I used to run was like, okay, this is your plan for the next year. Stick it in front of you and then walk into it. And it took me a long, long time to unbind from that. But it's incredible, like you say, when you really just let go of the need to plan. Or for me, it was more like I saw that the problem was the plan. The plan is the problem. And once you kind of just let that go, then every morning when you wake up, it's like a brand new day. Like it's just a whole brand new day. And you're just like, oh my God, anything could happen today. And it's not the expectation that anything could happen, because just sitting in my bed having a cup of coffee is just the most amazing thing, right? It's just kind of like, oh my God, I'm just like sitting here having coffee. And like you say, it's just like this incredible joy or contentment of just being absolutely present in this moment. And everything can just come from there, or nothing. Like nothing has to happen either. It doesn't matter. Like it's not, because that would also be pushing a plan. If you kind of at the back of your mind, you were like, well, I'm going to be open and hopefully I get lots of patient client emails wanting stuff from me. That's still a plan.
Yeah. It's really interesting that, you talk about the ideal scene, and there's something that I also want to talk about. Like, it's something that I still offer, but I talk about it a bit differently now as I did maybe years ago. Like, I totally recognize that we are all at different places in life. And some people still find it very comfortable to manifest, in their mind, manifesting specifically, it has to be like this and it has to be like that. And for me, it's like, divine time, divine order, all good. So I do say, if you feel drawn to do that, you absolutely can. But more and more, I invite people to, when they write their ideal scene, I say, what would it feel like in your body a year from now? What do you feel? Is it peace? Is it joy? Is it a sense of fulfillment? And that for me is very different from setting set goals.
Yeah.
That for me is knowing how it feels like in your body. So you let that guide you into what you are going to be doing next. Because so many things can bring you joy.
Mm-hmm.
So many things can make you feel fulfilled. So many things can make you feel abundant. Abundance is not just about money. And learning to really just connect with that vibration helps you learn to let go of how it needs to look like. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
So then life completely opens up for you because you are just moving towards joy, moving towards peace, instead of moving towards a 500 million commission. You know what I mean? It's very different.
So if you
It's
can,
very,
then why
very
not?
different. Yeah, if you can, why not? But it's like there's so many ways that you could experience joy and success and fulfillment and love and abundance. Why are we limiting ourselves to how it needs to look like?
Yeah.
So the more you allow your ideal scene to be that this is how I would feel like in my body, the more it can expand to, so many different possibilities, different situations, different life situations, different relationships, different careers,
Yeah.
yeah, just giving a few
Absolutely.
examples. But again, like I said, I also do recognize that not everyone um is that place where it's easy to do that. We talked about that a lot, like it's not easy and we have to practice and so on and so forth. So, and that's perfectly okay, you do it from where you're ready. You do it from what feels most natural to you at the time, but inviting a possibility of just not needing to know what it looks like can really be very eye-opening and enlightening for you. So I just kind of like plant that seed
Yeah.
with my ideal scenes, sound baths. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right, because for some people, I think they can also hear when we say don't do any planning, because we're not actually saying don't do any planning, but we're saying just make sure that that whatever planning you are doing is not limiting you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not
Because I
limiting.
do think that structure and planning does have its place. Like,
Yeah.
for example, in my life right now, there's quite a lot of planning in terms of, well, I do a podcast weekly and I have to go to work and I have to get to work at a certain time and all that kind of stuff. So um, there is this balance that needs to happen whereby there is a kind of structure or discipline that is put
Yeah.
in, because I think people go the complete opposite, which, like you say, is just, oh, I don't have to plan, the universe will give me everything, and then you just kind of like sit on the sofa. But there is this co-creative energy whereby the universe, for example, will kind of go, hey, look at this, you can connect with crystals, or you can connect with crystal bowls, you can do sound healing, you can do Reiki, you can do teaching, there's a student right in front of you. But then there is that movement of feeling that fear or doubt, or I can't do this isn't what I should be doing or want to do, from the mind, but then still stepping into that discomfort and, like you say, just testing out, okay, is this something that actually does come to me naturally, that this is something that maybe I can do? And so it's marrying that. And so for a lot of people, it takes a while to find that balance, that point whereby, okay, am I in my head, or am I doing too much planning, or am I limiting myself? And I think that can take people a long time. Like I still play with that balance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually feel like, I always say that Reiki is actually the foundation to expanding into life. And I start planting the seeds with even with our the the treatments that we teach, right? Like the 12 body positions. I start to plant this seeds of thinking differently or seeing structure differently. So you know how at level 1 we have this 12 body positions, which I call a structure.
Mm.
And then we have the intuitive treatment. So what I say to my students is this: the structure is there to guide you, not to limit you.
Yeah.
The moment you feel like your structure is limiting you, that's the time that you need to expand out of structure.
Mm.
When you feel completely lost and you don't know where to start, this is when you bring in structure to hold you. So it's meant to guide you, not limit you. And this is the first seed I plant because it's not just about your Reiki practice.
Yeah.
It's about life. Everything. Structures are meant to guide you, not limit you. Once it limits you, then that's the time that you really take a step back and relook
Yeah.
at that structure.
Love that. Yeah. And I think that's a really good place to leave people with. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
so that's an amazing point whereby have a look at your life, right? And what are the structures that are creating a constriction or a limitation or a sense of limitation? And maybe that's something, you know, we're getting into December now, so time for those new year like reflections in terms of what do you want to do differently for 2025. So I think this is a perfect place to stop. I could, as you know, talk to you for hours because we do.
We do.
But right now, I don't think the audience needs us to go rambling off for hours and hours. But just to say, it's been so lovely to chat with you as always. And I'm going to put a link to how people can contact you if they're interested in Reiki or getting one of your amazing crystal bracelets or tuning into your sound healing, because your sound healing is also online as well, right? So people can join from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I do have the virtual sound baths and the in-person sound baths, both of them. Yeah.
Perfect. So all of that will be in the bio at the bottom in the info. And for now, I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks so much, Elaine. Take care.
Thank
Bye,
you. Thank you for
everyone.
having me.